Hey everyone, it's the day before the regional on the Potomac River, and I just pulled up to Lee's Venue State Park. It is 10:34 at night, and I'm planning on sleeping right here in the truck in front of the gate. I had to go into work today, get some stuff done, got a little bit of a late start, but I'm excited to fish tomorrow. No practice, but that's okay. We're going to try to get it done, and hopefully things work out. So I'm actually sleeping in the back of the truck. You can kind of look and see I've got my sleeping bag laid out and the blanket, and that's where I'll be staying in the Dodge Suites tonight. But I'm excited. Tomorrow's the regional starts, so we'll see what happens out here.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. Hey, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land?
Alright, so I started off fishing at a pretty well-known area, and it just didn't work out. We were fishing slow, we were trying some baits that I thought should work, and just could not put anything together. I do want to give a special thanks to my co-angler. He was really helpful. He talked to me about some things that had worked for him in practice since I didn't get a chance to practice, and I'm grateful for that, so thank you, Matt. And it was 11 o'clock and we didn't have a fish, and so I decided I was going to make a move and try something different. Alright, so I made a move. I didn't go too far, and I thought, well, let me try some, lily pads. A lot of times this time of year on the Potomac, fish will get in those lily pads. They stay green for a while, and I was going to try something super shallow and just take my time and flip really, really slow along this line of pads. And you know, I was kind of optimistic that maybe it would work, and I hadn't seen a whole lot of boats in this area. I threw a frog as well. I think my co-angler gets up here in a little bit and throws a frog, and I flipped a creature bait, and I flipped a worm, and really didn't have any bites. I mean, nothing. I think, you know, a lot of these places had just been pounded in practice. You know, you get, I think there was 180, 190 boats in the tournament. They were up here practicing for 3 or 4 days in the regional, and this area right here was no secret. And I think probably pressure just got to it. Do I think some fish were probably holding in this line of pads right here at some point and at this time of year? Yeah, absolutely. But it just didn't work out for us today. But, you know, hey, I had to try something different, and this was my solution. It did not work out. But, you know, I don't regret taking the 30, 45 minutes or so it took us to fish this, because if I didn't, you know, it would have been in my mind pretty much all day. You know, if I'd have just gone and fished that line of pads, maybe I'd have caught something. But it just didn't work out. So from there, I made a move, and I went to a little marina not too far from where I was at. And this is an area that never has held a lot of fish, but usually, you know, maybe I can catch 1 or 2 good fish in here. I don't think it gets a lot of pressure. I mean, this is not a place that you can go and just catch a ton of fish, at least not this time of year. But I was hoping maybe we could pull 1 or 2 good ones out of here, because I just didn't think a whole lot of people had been in here and fished it, just because of the size of it, and it's kind of tucked back in. I mean, it's not hard to find, but you do have to look for it. And I worked a swim bait in here some along these docks, and you can see Matt behind me. He looks like, I believe, yeah, he was flipping a jig. I also did some flipping in here, you know, probably ate up another, you know, 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour to go back here and fish this water. But again, I thought, you know, maybe this is something that would work out for us. And at this point, you know, I don't know, it's probably 12:30, something like that. I mean, maybe even 1 o'clock. It's getting late in the day. And so I was really trying to find something that would, you know, maybe produce a 14-inch fish, and just didn't have any success really. But, you know, it was worth a shot. If you can figure out where it's at, you know, if you ever get up in the Potomac and fish, you know, it's worth a cast or 2 coming in here. It's never going to be a place where you go and catch a limit, but you can catch a few fish on occasion in here. Today it didn't work out for me, but, you know, it's a little bit deeper water in there. You can see there's boats. It's dredged out a little bit, so just something to keep in mind. You know, next time if you're up there fishing the Potomac, not a bad little place to check out. From there, made a move, went back to the area that we started at, because I really thought, well, this is the best chance I've got to catch a fish. And as you can see, I finally hooked up with a fish. Think I what?
I said I don't think you'll need them today. I hope you do though.
Oh. Got to be optimistic.
Holy crap.
Yes, sir.
Good deal.
See it, right? There's 12 of you, don't
Yep.
Got my lead. He didn't make about much, but he made it.
Sorry about that. That was twice I missed him. Jeez. Easy, dude.
Ahead.
It's about a 3 3/4.
Hoping nobody saw me catch it.
Buckeye showed you a few tricks. So,
Hey, appreciate you.
good job. That's a good one. What do you got now? About 4, maybe 8. I'd say probably 7 or 8 pounds.
I got that one. So at this point, I decide it's time to pack up, start heading back towards check-in. It is guessing, I think it's about 4:20, 4:25 right now when we pull up. So I've got maybe 10 minutes left to fish, and I thought I'd get one last spot in. You know, I've got 3 fish in a live well that don't weigh a whole lot, but you never know. I mean, I've caught a fish or 2 on the last spot before, and I'm hoping maybe I can, you know, pull off, a miracle here and catch 1 or 2 in this last spot. And, you know, really at this point, I'm kind of grateful to have the 3 fish that I did have. You know, I wish Matt could have got a fish. You know, he certainly helped me out this day and talked to me about what I needed to do and kind of some of the areas he had been around. So, again, really want to say thanks to Matt. I wish he could have got a fish. You know, we were fishing some grass areas, and it just didn't work out. You know, that's how it is. You fish these big grass flats, you know, the boater and the co-angler. A lot of times it's, you know, a little bit random about who catches the fish. I've seen co-anglers beat boaters a lot in these big flats where there's grass, you know. I mean, there's some certain things you can key in on, but again, just want to say thanks to Matt. He helped me out, and I've got 3 fish. And it is just about time to weigh in. Day 1 is pretty much over with. And at this point, I'm starting to think, okay, Otto, what are you going to do? How much you need to catch for day 2? You know, are you still going to be in this thing? And, you know, just trying to prepare myself for another grind tomorrow because I know that's what's going to happen. 151. 151. I didn't have a fish at 2:30. I didn't have a fish.
You just call me.
I was scrambling. I'm like, I'm a daggone 0, man. I ran to where I thought I could catch some fish this morning. 11 o'clock came around. I had 0 fish. I was like, I got to do something. I got up here at like 10 o'clock last night, man. I got up here at like 10 o'clock last night. Yeah. I drove straight to the gate at Leesylvania, turned my truck off and went to sleep right there in front of the gate until they opened the park up. Some dude was behind me blowing his horn this morning trying to get on the park. It was crazy, man. You came up here for a couple days? You fished for a couple days?
No, I'm coming here.
Hayden Payne coming in next up. Doug's first.
Tuesday, I showed up on Tuesday. I here like
Hayden's got 4 orders. Bass day 4.
about 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
8 ounces day for you, Hayden. Thank you, sir. A lot. At this time,
I just
I'd like to welcome
practicing
to the
because I don't be
stage
here.
Biff
Right.
Director
But,
Steve
It
Sizemore.
don't make no difference because today I could have fished yesterday. I don't have a bike.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Boat number 100.
151. Auto.
Evan Bowman from
Hold that open for
California. Okay. I was about to make that up, but I'm from Arkansas, so that's okay.
3 and 3.
He's fishing on the motor side from the Buckeye division. You got 5 in the bag. Gonna weigh 12 pounds, 5 ounces. Got you in 50. Otto Hicks from Sneed's Ferry, North Carolina, fishing on the motor side from our Piedmont division. Got 3 in the bag today. Gonna weigh 5 pounds, 8 ounces. Otto,
Appreciate it.
go get them tomorrow,
All right, buddy. Yeah, man.
This day is from Spring Grove, Virginia.
You get your motivation and get it tomorrow.
Good luck tomorrow, brother. Yeah, man.
Does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the
So taking off on day 2, and I'm hoping that maybe something will be different. You know, I'm really thinking that the weather's a little different. The wind was a little bit blowing, a little bit more clouds. Maybe today would bring some good bites. So I'm optimistic on day 2, planning on moving a lot more than I did on day 1. So, you know, probably fished about an hour at this first spot, and then made a quick move and thought, well, let me go back over to where I caught some of those fish the day before. I didn't see anybody over there, and I thought, well, maybe I could get on it. And, you know, I flew the drone around a little bit, as you can see, and really just didn't do a whole lot. You know, as you can see, the tide was really just about right first thing on day 2, and I thought maybe this will make a difference and we could, you know, get a few bites. Typically in the Potomac River, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that water to be going out or maybe just starting to come in. That's my experience. A few times I've caught them when it's a high tide, but typically you want that water kind of going out or just coming in, and really it was kind of perfect for day 2. The conditions were overcast. I was throwing a top water. My co-angler was throwing a top water. I was also fishing a worm. If you're wondering, you know, the type of top water I was fishing was just, you know, it was a black spro frog, nothing special. Was not a popping frog. And I was working it over the clumps of grass, you know, and maybe 2 to 3 foot of water. You can see a few dark spots here from the drone, and a few light spots. You know, those are the areas you're looking for, those little bit of contrast there in the water. And just did not have any luck. I mean, we didn't even have a blow up. And then I started, you know, I got a plastic lure out, you know, and what was I throwing there? I was throwing a Zoom Old Monster, and I was also throwing a Cinco, which I've had a lot of luck with on the Potomac River. Buddy of mine showed me that years ago. You know, there's probably not a better bait to throw in a Potomac than a Senko day in and day out. It takes a lot of patience to throw it, but those fish really seem to bite it well up there. Something about a slow-moving bait with that tide, moving in and out just does it for them. You can probably figure out where I'm fishing here. For those of you that were, I know guys watching these videos are always trying to figure out where people are fishing and all that, and I get it. I kind of do the same thing, but I don't ever try to make it easy on you, right? So hopefully this drone footage here, you can kind of get an idea of where I'm at. It's not a secret spot, but it does usually hold some fish, and it did hold some fish this tournament too. Just did not work out for me this morning, but it's probably about 10 o'clock, 10:30, and I'm thinking, man, I got to do something. I got to make a move, and that's what I did. All right, so this probably is about 12 o'clock on day 2, and I made a run way up the river, up by the 95 bridge. I checked a couple of those bays that are way up north, and I found that they were all blown out. Muddy water, just dingy, did not look good, debris everywhere. I actually missed a fish right there and a frog. I had 3 or 4 blow-ups on a frog at this particular spot. And I came back from those upper bays up north, and I went into a bay, I don't know, maybe 10 miles or so above where I was fishing before, and there was a little patch of grass here at a point, and I did get some blow-ups right here. Didn't catch any. They could have been snakeheads. I wasn't sure. Interestingly enough, I believe I also found where the winning fish were at. There was a grass mat in the back of this bay that had about 10 boats on it, and I recognized like 3 of the boats. They were all the guys in the top 10, and they were literally within 75 yards of each other. It looked like to me they were all throwing frogs in this one small mat. I mean, they must have really been packed in this mat. But, I wasn't going to go in there and muscle in. But that was interesting. I just throw that out to everybody. But this spot did not produce either, so I had to move on from here. So at this point, I am at my last stop for the day. I was boat number 22 going out. They flip-flop boats, and so I had to check in a lot earlier. Day 2, 3:40, so I lost an hour fishing. And this is a spot where I've caught some fish off wood over the years, these laydowns. I thought I would try it. I'd spent a lot of time fishing grass the last 2 days, and I thought, well, maybe it's worth a shot fishing this wood. Went in here, flipped pretty methodically, took my time, also threw some chatterbaits. My co-angler behind me flipped really slow as well, and just did not have any bites. The funny thing is we didn't even catch any small fish. I mean, a lot of times you'll catch non-keepers in the fall, and we did not find those fish at all. I don't know what was going on. You can see the water was kind of out pretty good on these logs. I thought the water would be up since it was low earlier, but for whatever reason, it just was not up on these logs like it should have been. I don't know if the wind maybe had blown some water out of this bay the night previous, but just didn't have a lot of water in this wood. But we took our time and we fished it, and really at this point we're both kind of frustrated. I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't going to go muscle in on some of the guys that were on fish, because by this time I had run around a little bit and seen where a lot of the guys were fishing. I'd recognize some boats, and that's just not my style to do that. That's one of those unwritten rules in fishing. You just don't do that. And so I was trying to find places that nobody was on, that I wasn't going to get in the way of somebody that was in contention to win this tournament or place really well. And I really had kind of run out of places to go. This particular spot seemed promising. There wasn't any boats on it, but just didn't have any luck here. And the frustration part of it really was setting in that, I know this river well. I've spent a lot of time in this river, and I expected to at least catch some fish. I didn't know how I would do, but to come out and zero on the Potomac River a day of fishing just wasn't what I anticipated. I would not have thought that would have happened, but that is in fact what happened on day 2. I did not catch a keeper fish on day 2. I was trying to think back, have I ever not caught a keeper on a day of fishing on the Potomac before? And I don't remember it. Ironically, the last couple years I've zeroed in a few tournaments. I'm not sure what to think about that. I guess if you fish tournaments long enough, it's going to happen to you. And this last couple years, I've had a few stinker tournaments. But, you know, it was great to be back on the Potomac. And there's something special about this river. But that pretty much wraps up day 2. It was, you know, a really interesting tournament. But I'm glad I got a chance to fish it. You know, something about that river, a lot of history on the river, man, and the Potomac is pretty wild. So if you ever get a chance to go up and fish the Potomac, I'd highly encourage it. I'm going to do a whiff'em here at the end of this video. I'll talk to you about some of the things that I've learned on the Potomac over the years, and some of the things, that lessons learned from this tournament. So let's start the whiff'em. So here we go. Hey, welcome to the whiff'em portion of the video. First, I just want to say thanks to everybody for watching these videos. I appreciate you subscribing. It means a lot to me. Also like to thank my sponsors, you know, for 2021, Mercury Marine, Mare of Aquia, TH Marine, Ranger Boats, and Black Magic Racing. Kenny Anthony, special shout out to you. You really took care of me this year, and I greatly appreciate it. It really means a lot. A lot of changes happening in 2022. I'll be retiring out of the Marine Corps. With 30 years, I am a Marine Raider. I work for Marine Special Operations Command, if you haven't figured that out. And which leads me to the last sponsor I want to talk about is the Marine Raider Foundation. You know, they do a lot of great things for not just Marines, but for all members of the military. They really support the veterans and current active duty guys that need it. So if you're really looking for a foundation or a charity, association, whatever you want to call them, you know, to support, look into the Marine Raider Foundation. Also look into the Marine Raider Association. The association is a great group as well. You know, highly recommended. Great people in charge of both of those organizations. So the Marine Raider Foundation, Marine Raider Association. As far as the tournament goes, what did I learn from this tournament? First of all, you know, you hear it all the time, don't fish history. Well, that's what I did. I didn't have time to practice. Well, I take that back. I could have practiced, but I spent some time with some people that I wanted to spend time with that are important to me, vice practicing for the Potomac. I mentioned that in the last video. And that's where I put my priorities. And, you know, I hoped for the best, and I fished history, and it didn't work out. You know, the first place I went on day 1 was a place I'd caught them in the past, and it was 11 o'clock, and I didn't have a fish. And I knew at that point things had changed drastically. I saw where they had a super tide for a few days prior to the beginning of this tournament. And when that tide comes way up on this river, it makes things really difficult because even on a low tide, the water never really goes out. I had heard how hard this river was fishing before I got there, but, you know, old hats, we want to believe, hey, we can catch some fish where we did in the past, and it just did not happen. And, you know, typical fashion, the fish were grouped up, right? The guys that did well in this tournament found a couple small areas that really held some healthy populations of fish. There might have been some couple guys here and there that ran, you know, 20, 30 miles up and down the river for a few days and caught some fish. But typically it's the guys that find a group of fish and they just stay there and grind it out that do well in this river. So what can I tell you about the Potomac River? The Potomac River gets a lot of pressure. I will tell you, in October, the wind typically always blows, which was so ironic about this tournament. The wind hardly blew at all. Very rare this time of year. So usually it's kind of a windy tournament. Water is blown out a lot. The tides get blown out. Really the opposite for this tournament. The weather was beautiful, actually. And, you know, the Potomac is a grass tournament. What did I throw? I threw chatterbaits. I threw frogs. I threw an old monster worm in plum color, right? I threw a green pumpkin Cinco, wacky style. And I don't think any of those are secret. Those baits will typically always catch you fish on the Potomac River. You hear a lot of guys talking about fishing hard structure on the Potomac. Yes, you can catch fish off hard structure, but I got to tell you, anytime I've done really well in this tournament, it's been off grass, right? Because I just think there's higher concentrations of fish on grass. If you know where maybe 10 or 15 pieces of hard structure at, you can run around and maybe make it happen and get 6 to 8 bites a day. But typically it's a grass fishery. the biggest lesson learned for me in this tournament is fishing history, right? You have to practice. You have to know the current conditions. By the time I figured out the current conditions, we're 3/4 of the way through day one, and I found just a little something. Luckily, my co-angler talked to me a little bit about what he had found, and that helped me some. And day two, I decided, well, I'm going to run around and try to expand some, and it just didn't work out for me. Because, I wasted probably an hour and a half running around the river, looking at things that I should have looked at in practice, and I realized they were blown out, and I ended up kind of right back where I started. So that's the biggest lesson, right? You have to take the time to practice. You have to, kind of put away some of the past, and you have to be open-minded. Those things that worked for you in the past may not always work, although I think baits traditionally do, right? Typically the body of waters, same type baits typically play, and I think that was true for this tournament as well. Potomac is a great fishery. I would encourage you to get up there. If you want to learn how to fish tidal waters, the Potomac is a great place to do it because it gets a lot of pressure. It's got a strong incoming and outgoing tide. Several times a day. The tide cycle is always good. You can actually run down and fish brackish water, or you can run all the way up towards DC and fish freshwater. There's actually smallmouth in the Potomac River. You hear stories about them being caught below south of the 95 bridge. And I think I might have caught one or two within a quarter mile of the 95 bridge. But typically you get up into Washington, D.C., you can catch some smallmouth. And I've caught some nice smallmouth up there, 3.5, 4 pounders. It's one of those things I was never willing to run and do in a tournament because it's way up there. You got to have a Washington, D.C. license. But my point is, it is a huge river. A lot of opportunities there for you to try different things. It's a great place to learn tidal fishing. So don't fish history. Don't be afraid to, keep an open mind and try new things. Make sure you're practicing. You got to get out there and practice. You have to know the current conditions. And typically the fish are grouped up in the Potomac. That's just the way it is. It's one of those places that has a lot of community holes, and a lot of times those areas play over and over and over again. So anyway, 2022 is coming up, and I hope that it is a great year for everyone. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. It's coming up next week. I hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas. I'll try to put out a few more videos this winter. Fishing some team tournaments local. I think I'll be able to do that. But for AutoHecht, I will tell you there's some big changes coming in 22. I'm excited to see what happens after the Marine Corps. It's been a wild ride. It's been 30 years of my life that I will never forget. It's been great, and frankly, I would do it all over again. But hope everybody's great holidays and has a good new year, and we will see you later out here.